All right, so today we're diving deep into a topic that tends to spark quite a bit of controversy and misunderstanding,
Yeah.
the Quran's perspective on disbelief.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at the insights offered in the Quran. God's message to mankind, the New Millennium Exposition, or NME,
Right.
by Paigam Mustafa. Ready to unpack this?
Absolutely. I think it's particularly interesting how Mustafa uses the Quran's own words
Yeah.
to challenge those traditional interpretations and really shed light on some of these complex concepts,
Yeah.
like kafir and ex-Muslims.
Exactly. And that's a great place to start, I think.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, the article kind of goes right for this term kafir,
Right.
which a lot of times is just translated as disbelievers.
Yeah.
But Mustafa's saying there's more to it than just not believing.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. He's suggesting that kafir really points to this act of actively hiding or rejecting the truth,
Okay.
particularly the truth that's revealed in the Quran. So it goes beyond just passively not believing.
Yep.
It suggests a conscious choice to kind of disregard or suppress what the Quran is presenting as truth.
And it's not just about believing in God.
Right.
It's about a whole set of values
Yeah.
that the Quran emphasizes, right?
Absolutely. The article lists out, several of these values.
Yeah.
Things like acting justly,
Mm-hmm.
helping the vulnerable,
Hmm.
standing up against oppression. And it even goes so far as to mention, fulfilling your commitments, sincerely advocating good, opposing evil, promoting fair trade and social welfare.
It even mentions honoring parents and protecting children.
It does.
So it's not just about personal belief.
Right.
It's about how your actions impact the community.
Absolutely. It connects these actions to the harmony and well-being of society as a whole.
Mm.
Suggesting that rejecting these principles can
Mm.
actually lead to some harmful consequences,
Oh.
even if someone believes that their actions are, personal and don't affect others.
It's almost like that idea that there's no such thing as a truly victimless crime.
Exactly.
Because our actions always have these ripple effects.
Right.
Whether we're aware of them or not.
Exactly. And the article seems to suggest that the Quran views kafir not just as a matter of, what you personally believe,
Yeah.
but as a stance that can actually have far-reaching consequences for the individual and the community.
That's pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So how does this understanding of kafir then relate to this idea of an ex-Muslim,
Right.
which is a term that we hear a lot these days?
Yeah, that's where things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because Mustafa actually tackles this question head on.
Yeah.
Can someone truly be an ex-Muslim?
It is a loaded question.
Yeah.
I think some people would say, of course you can choose your beliefs.
Right.
But the article is suggesting it's not quite that simple.
Right. The article really emphasizes that being a Muslim, in the Quran's view, is less about how you identify yourself and more about your commitment to the values and guidance outlined in the Quran.
So someone could call themselves an ex-Muslim,
Yeah.
but if they're still living by those values of justice, compassion, helping others,
Right.
are they really rejecting the essence of the Quran's message?
That's the key question that the article is raising, right? It's highlighting this potential for dissonance between someone's chosen label
Okay.
and their actions,
Yeah.
suggesting that true Islam
Yeah.
is more about embodying those values
Okay.
than simply identifying with a specific religion.
And the article also brings up a really interesting point about why
Okay.
some people reject Islam.
It does. It points out that a lot of people who identify as ex-Muslim have actually had negative experiences with
Yeah.
societies or individuals who claim to be Muslim,
Yeah.
but don't actually embody the Quran's values.
So they're judging the label and not the substance.
Exactly.
They're seeing hypocrisy or actions that totally contradict the Quran's message of peace and justice,
Yeah.
and then assuming the whole religion is flawed.
Right. And Mustafa's arguing that that is a misunderstanding of what the Quran actually teaches. He's suggesting that they're missing the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
focusing on the imperfections of, individuals or societies,
Right.
rather than engaging with the core message of the Quran itself.
So how does the Quran address those who genuinely feel that they've moved away from Islam?
Right.
Whether it's because of personal experiences or just, changing beliefs?
Right.
Does it offer any guidance on that?
Interestingly, it does.
Okay.
The article highlights a Quranic verse,
Okay.
8.5, which talks about providing ways
Okay.
for people to leave one system and enter Islam upon discovering the truth.
So it acknowledges that possibility of people kind of evolving in their beliefs and even
Yeah.
changing,
Yeah.
their entire systems of belief.
Absolutely. And it ties into that idea that the Quran is inviting everyone to find harmony within its system, aligning with the values and the guidance it provides.
So it's not forcing anyone into a box. It's presenting a path toward individual and collective well-being.
Exactly.
So rather than condemning those who don't believe, the Quran seems to be focusing on offering this framework for a better way of life, both for individuals and society.
That's a really insightful observation, I think. The article seems to be suggesting that the Quran's message isn't about, punishment or condemnation, but about guiding people towards a more harmonious and fulfilling existence.
No, I know some listeners might be thinking, hold on, isn't the Quran known for being pretty harsh
Right.
towards those who don't believe?
Right.
What does the article say about that?
Yeah, that's a common perception, and the article addresses it directly. It explains that the Quran's seemingly strong language towards kafirs is directly related to the potential harm their rejection of these core values could cause.
Harm to themselves or harm to others?
The article suggests both. It actually uses an analogy to illustrate this point. Imagine someone who just denies the existence of poverty, right? They're unlikely to see social welfare programs as being necessary or important.
Because they don't acknowledge the problem in the first place.
Exactly.
It's like saying, if you don't believe in gravity, you might jump off a building and be surprised by the consequences.
Exactly. And the article argues that this kind of thinking, this rejection of certain truths, can have this domino effect. It might start with something seemingly small, but it can lead to behaviors that impact not only the individual, but the people around them.
So it all comes back to that interconnectedness.
Precisely.
Their actions have ripple effects.
Yeah, the Quran recognizes this interconnectedness, emphasizing that even actions that appear victimless can actually contribute to a broader culture of apathy or disregard for the well-being of others.
So the strong language isn't about condemnation, but rather it's a warning about the potential consequences of rejecting these fundamental truths and values.
That's the argument that Mustafa presents, yes.
That's a very different perspective than what we often hear.
It is.
It encourages us to kind of look beyond the surface and consider that deeper meaning behind the Quran's message.
Absolutely. And it challenges us to think critically about what we believe and how those beliefs influence our actions, both individually and as part of a larger community.
Yeah, it really does encourage us to move beyond that kind of simplistic understanding of belief and to really consider, the real world impact of our actions.
It's a call to personal responsibility, for sure. But the article actually takes this idea a step further, right? It goes into this concept of submitting to Islam.
It does.
Which it defines as harmonizing with a law or order.
Right, and that's where Mustafa's interpretation
really starts to challenge that conventional thinking. He argues that anyone who truly submits to the deen Islam or the system of Islam can be described as a Muslim. But again, it's not about just, calling yourself that label. It's about actually embodying those universal principles of good conduct that are laid out in the Quran.
So it's not about saying you're a Muslim.
Right.
It's about living in accordance with those values.
Exactly. The article even suggests that, conscientious people might already be living by these high standards, embodying these exemplary characteristics even before they even encounter the Quran.
So you could be a Muslim in a sense without even realizing it.
Yeah, in a sense, right. It's suggesting that the term Muslim isn't limited to just, those who explicitly identify with the religion. It's more about a way of being, a commitment to these universal values that promote harmony and well-being.
It kind of flips the script.
It does.
On what it means to belong to a particular religion.
Right.
But this brings us back to those who actively reject Islam. Those who identify as ex-Muslims.
Right.
What does the article say about them?
Yeah.
In light of this understanding of submitting to Islam?
Well, the article acknowledges that many people reject Islam because of the negative behaviors they've observed in, some people who claim to be Muslim.
So they're reacting to what they see as hypocrisy. This disconnect between the ideals of Islam
Right.
and how some people actually behave.
Exactly.
Right.
And Mustafa emphasizes that this is a misinterpretation of the Quran's true message.
Okay.
The issue isn't with the Quran itself.
Right.
It's with those who, distort or misrepresent its teachings.
They're judging the players, not the game.
Exactly. And in doing so, the article argues they're rejecting the potential for a just and equitable society that the Quran's guidance can actually provide.
They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
They see the problems, but instead of trying to address them within the framework of Islam, they're just rejecting the whole system.
They are. And, here's where Mustafa makes a very thought-provoking statement.
Okay.
He suggests that by rejecting the Quran, these individuals are effectively becoming ex-humanitarians.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's a powerful statement.
Very powerful.
And it really underscores that point, that the Quran's message is fundamentally about promoting human welfare and creating a society that actually upholds those values.
Okay.
So by rejecting the Quran, they're maybe inadvertently rejecting the very principles that could lead to a better world.
So even if they don't see it that way, their rejection of the Quran could be seen as a rejection of those core principles of justice, compassion, service to humanity.
That's what the article suggests, yeah. And this brings us to another key concept that Mustafa explores.
Okay.
This idea of the law of requital.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is the law of requital?
Right. So the article describes it as a fundamental law of the Quran, almost like the law of gravity.
Okay.
It states that every action, whether it's good or bad, has a consequence.
Right.
It's not about, traditional punishment or reward, but about this inherent cause and effect relationship that exists within the universe, as described by the Quran.
So it's about accountability.
Exactly.
It's saying you can't escape the consequences of your actions,
right?
Even if you don't believe in the system that's outlining those consequences.
Right. The article emphasizes that this law applies to everyone, regardless of their belief. It's like a universal principle that governs the functioning of the universe.
So even if someone rejects the Quran's moral framework, they can't escape those natural consequences of their actions.
That seems to be the point that Mustafa is making, He's suggesting it's impossible to completely opt out of the Quran's system.
Okay.
Because this law of requital is just woven into the fabric of reality.
It's like trying to deny the existence of gravity.
Exactly.
You might not believe in it, but it's still going to affect you.
It is. The article suggests that this law of requital serves as a reminder that we are all part of a larger system, and that our actions do have consequences whether we recognize them or not.
It's not just about following rules.
Right.
It's about understanding those deeper principles that govern our existence and the impact our choices have on ourselves and the world around us.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's what makes this exploration of the Quran's perspective on disbelief so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not about condemning those who don't believe.
Right.
It's about prompting us to consider the implications of our choices and that interconnected nature of our existence.
It's encouraging us to think deeply about our beliefs.
Absolutely.
And how those beliefs actually translate into actions.
Yeah.
Recognizing that even seemingly small choices can have those far-reaching consequences.
They can. Yeah, they really can. It's a reminder that we're not just, isolated individuals.
Yeah.
We're all part of this larger web of interconnectedness. And our actions really do create these ripples that extend far beyond ourselves.
So what does all this mean for us?
Right.
For the everyday person who might not be a scholar of Islam, but is trying to make sense of, their own beliefs and their place in the world?
That's the big question. And I think that's what the article really encourages us to grapple with.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us, these easy answers.
Right.
But it does prompt us to look beyond those simplistic interpretations, to question our own assumptions, and really engage with the deeper implications of the Quran's message.
It's almost like it's saying, don't just take my word for it.
Right.
Go explore the Quran for yourself.
Yeah.
Ponder its meanings and see how it resonates with your own experiences and values.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Mustafa's interpretation so refreshing.
Yeah.
He's not shying away from these difficult questions or trying to, force fit the Quran into a pre-existing box.
Right.
He's inviting us into a dialogue, a process of discovery and reflection.
And he reminds us that the Quran isn't just some ancient text sitting on a shelf.
It's not.
It's a living, breathing document.
It is.
That speaks to the complexities of human existence.
Yeah.
And the challenges we face.
Right.
In creating this, just and compassionate world.
Absolutely. It's a call to action, a challenge to align our lives with those universal principles.
Right.
Of justice, compassion, accountability.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What's the key takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the most important takeaway is that the Quran, as presented in the article, really does offer this path toward individual and collective harmony. And whether you identify as a Muslim or not, the values it espouses, truthfulness, justice, compassion, service to others, they really do have the potential to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
It's about recognizing that interconnectedness we talked about. It's understanding our actions have consequences. And striving to live in a way that benefits not just ourselves, but, all of humanity.
Exactly. And it all starts with an open mind, a willingness to really engage with these ideas and a commitment to putting those values into practice in our daily lives.
Well said. If you'd like to dive deeper, I encourage you to pick up a copy of the Quran, God's Message to Mankind, the New Millennium Exposition, and explore it for yourself. For more information, you can visit signet.co.uk.
As you're going through it, ask yourself, do these principles resonate with my own values and beliefs? How can I embody them in my own life and contribute to building a more harmonious and just world?
That's a powerful question to reflect on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better tomorrow.